Hello, everybody. Welcome back to class. I hope that everybody is staying safe during this quarantine and you're all washing your hands for no less than 20 seconds. So today we are going to learn about adding and subtracting integers. I would like to preface that there are many ways to solving adding and subtracting integers. Some examples are that you could use colored counters, a number line, table using the absolute value. But for today and for this class, I am going to show you two ways that I found to be the simplest. But as always, if you do not understand or if these ways don't make sense to you, please email me and let me know and we can work and we can find another way. Okay, our objectives for today are to review what integers are. We're going to classify integers. We're going to look at some rules when working with integers. And I'm going to go over the two ways that I found to be the simplest, which are adding and subtracting integers on a number line and using the absolute value. So we're going to begin by reviewing what is an integer. An integer is a whole number that can be positive or negative and include 0. Some examples would be 3, -4, 12, 0. And some numbers that would not be classified as integers are any decimal numbers, positive or negative, and fractions, positive or negative. Some rules when working with integers is when adding a negative, it is the same as subtracting a positive. One way to visualize this or think about it is, let's say I were to give you 2 cookies. So now you would have positive 2 cookies. But then let's say I were to give you negative 2 cookies. That would essentially be the same as taking 2 cookies away. So when it comes to math, this rule means that when you have a problem such as 5 plus -1, where you are adding a negative number, you can just change it to subtraction. So that would be 5 minus 1. Our second rule is when subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. Another way to think about this is that let's say you have negative 2 cookies, or that you are in debt 2 cookies, and you owe me 2 cookies. But now let's say that I were to subtract those 2 negative cookies from you, or that I were to take your debt away. You would then have no debt, and subtracting the debt would then make you more positive. So when it comes to math, this rule means that when you have a problem such as 5 minus -1, where you are subtracting a negative number, you can change it to addition, and it can become 5 plus 1. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at ways of adding integers. Our first way would be using a number line. So here we have our number line. And when you think about a number line, we have all of our negative numbers here on the left and all of our positive numbers here on the right. Our basic rule when working with a number line is that when we add a negative integer, we are going to be moving to the left, and when we are adding a positive integer, we are going to be moving to the right. For our first problem, we have -6 plus 9. So we're going to start at -6, and we're going to add 9. When adding a positive integer, we're going to move to the right. So let's do that. Start at -6, and then we're going to move 9 spaces to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our answer for the first question would be 3, positive 3. For our second question, we're going to be starting on -1, and we're going to be adding negative 4. So when we're at a negative integer, we are going to move to the left. We start at negative 1, and we're going to move negative 4 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. And our answer would be negative 5. For our last one, we would be starting on 4, and we're going to be adding negative 6. So again, to add a negative integer, we move to the left. We start at 4. Now we're going to go with 6 spaces to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And our answer would be negative 2. Our second method is using absolute value. For this method, all you have to remember is that there are 3 rules, and all we have to do is memorize those 3 rules, and roller will be golden. So first we're going to be looking at same signs. So when adding the absolute value, all we need to do is use the common sign. For our first problem, we have negative 5 plus negative 4. So we're going to be adding the absolute value of both of our numbers. And the absolute value of negative 5 would be 5, and the absolute value of negative 4 would be 4. That would be 5 plus 4 equals 9. And since our common sign for both of these is a negative, our answer would be negative 9. For our second one, we have 3 plus 2. So we're going to add the absolute values of 3 and 2, which is 3 and 2. 3 plus 2 is 5, and our common sign is positive. So our answer would be positive 5. When working with different signs, the rule for this is subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger absolute value and then use the same sign as the larger absolute value. So for here, we are going to subtract the smaller absolute value, which would be 4, from 6. So 6 minus 4 would equal 2. And our larger absolute value is 6, and the sign for that is positive, so our answer would be positive 2. Same for the second question. We are going to subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger absolute value, and 5 minus 4 is 1. And the sign of our larger absolute value is negative, because we have negative 5, so that would equal negative 1. Next, we have 7 plus negative 3, so 7 minus 3 equals 4, with our larger absolute value being 7, and the sign being positive. So our answer would therefore be positive 4. Next, we have opposite signs. So when two numbers are opposite, they're always going to add up to be 0. So some examples of this would be negative 6 plus 6, or 6 plus negative 6. Those two are always all going to equal 0 because the two numbers would cancel each other out. Now we're going to be looking at subtracting integers. And when we are subtracting integers, the key thing to remember is that the key to subtracting integers is to add the opposite. And we're going to change the subtraction equations to addition. So going back to our rule, our second rule is just change it to addition. So for these questions, all of these questions can be changed into addition by using the inverse operation. The inverse operation is essentially just means to add the opposite. And every subtraction problem when working with integers is essentially an addition problem because we just have to add the opposite. So for our first problem, we have 2 minus negative 2. So we can change that to be so we can change that to be 2 plus 2, which is 4. And next we have negative 4 minus negative 9, which we can change to be negative 4 plus 9, which would equal 5. Next we have 2 minus 2, and 2 minus 2 is just a math fact. We don't have to change it. We could, but we do not have to. 2 minus 2 is just 0. That's it. Next we have negative 4 minus 9, which we can change to be negative 4 plus negative 9, which is 13. Another super easy way to remember it is two negatives make a positive. So for example, we have right here minus negative 2. These two negatives make a positive. Right here we have these two negatives. These two negatives make a positive. Okay, and for our next slide, we have homework or a little pre-quiz exercise to prepare you all for the quiz that is going to be due online. So you can go over these problems. Okay. So now I am assuming that you're all back to look at the answers. Hopefully you paused the video, and because now I am going to go over the answers. Here are the answers. If you have any questions over any of these, or if you got to a different answer that I have, feel free to send me an email asking how I got the answers, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, everybody, this is the end of our lecture. If you ever get confused or if you have any questions about any of the material, you can always go back to the basics, go back to the number line, go back to using the absolute value, whichever way worked best for you. Remember to be confident in what you remember, learn from your mistakes, and if you have any questions at all over any of the material, please feel free to ask me, email me, whatever works. That is all for today. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you all in our next meeting. Bye-bye.